Hey everybody. What's up everybody? Okay, let's get ready for Big Book study. Tonight we're in chapter 5, which is how it works. So come on with it and let's do this. Also, for everybody that has their panties in a wad because I said marijuana was a gateway drug for me, it's like you can't take my experience away, guys. Like, I was using drugs in the early 90s when marijuana was still illegal. Okay, so back then, marijuana was definitely a gateway drug for many of us. A lot of you guys aren't even 25 yet. So when I say marijuana was a gateway drug for me, you're like, what? Marijuana is legal. You have to remember that I started using substances in the 90s, 95, 96, 97. And that's why it was a gateway for me, because it introduced me to people that were using other substances. I would have never used methamphetamine or cocaine if I hadn't started using marijuana first, because my dealer, the one who sold me marijuana and sold my boyfriend marijuana, also sold cocaine. And so it was definitely a gateway drug for me. I'm sorry if that makes some of you upset, but it's just the truth. It's not like it is now where marijuana is legal and you can buy it at any place you want, you know? In a lot of states, you can just buy it and don't have to have a prescription. Where I live in Arkansas, you have to have a prescription. You can't even, it's way different now than it was in the 90s. And so a lot of us who are my age, marijuana was definitely a gateway drug for us. And when I say that, that's not me blaming marijuana. I take full responsibility for my substance use. But what I'm sharing with you guys is I probably would have never tried anything if I hadn't first tried marijuana. It loosened me up. It got me okay with the idea of using drugs because I had never even drank alcohol. So just because I say marijuana was a gateway for me doesn't mean it has to be a gateway for you. And it also doesn't mean that I don't support people that utilize marijuana. But what I'm telling you guys is that people who are my age, who started using in the 90s, marijuana was something that opened us up to other drugs. Do you understand what I'm saying? So here's the gate. It's closed off. I've never used a drink or a drug. I use marijuana and I drank alcohol for the first time, and that opened that gate for me to introduce me to other things. That's all that means. It doesn't mean I don't support marijuana. It doesn't mean I don't think it's okay to smoke medical marijuana. I absolutely support medical marijuana if you have a prescription or if it's legal in your state. It was a lot different in the 90s. It's not like it is today. Okay, you guys don't understand that. A lot of you guys are so young. I'm 40 years old, okay? Like, you guys don't understand. I never would have even been around people that were using if I hadn't been around people that were smoking marijuana. Okay, so it's not like it is today. Then, you know, a lot of people, their gateway was pain pills, and they took pain pills for the first time because they had an injury. And me saying, no, pain pills can't be a gateway. That can't happen. Yes, it can happen, you know? And maybe the generation after mine, I think the generation after my generation is more of the gateway was pain pills, not marijuana. And so it was totally different back then. And a lot of you guys don't understand that because you're so young. So please don't take offense to the fact that I'm letting you know that marijuana was my gateway. It's just me sharing my experience. It doesn't mean I don't support you. So, hey Cece, I'm doing good. Tonight we're on chapter 5, which is how it works in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you guys have a Big Book, go get your Big Book and follow along with us. I'm gonna wait like 10 minutes to start because we have a bunch of people that want to come and do this study with us. So we'll wait for all of them to get there, but it was so funny because people were like, oh my God, Nicole, don't say that. don't blame marijuana. And I'm like, you guys, saying that marijuana opened that gate for me is not me blaming anything. I don't blame anyone except for my disease, okay? I have the disease of addiction, all right? I was born with the disease of addiction. I didn't have trauma, okay? I didn't have a bad family. I wasn't, you know, nothing happened to me in life nothing happened to me in life where I was like hurt or harmed. I didn't have anything, you know, I wasn't beaten by my parents. I wasn't abused, you know what I mean? I started using drugs simply out of curiosity, and it started with marijuana, then alcohol, then cocaine, then methamphetamine, then pain pills, then Xanax. And so that's the order it went in for me. And so it always kind of cracks me up because it's so funny here on TikTok, because it's like if you share anything that's not agreeing with people's point of view, then it's like they can't understand that somebody else can have a different experience than them. You know, why would somebody want to invalidate my experience with marijuana? Like, that's my experience, you know? It doesn't necessarily mean I think marijuana is bad. Just like I shared with you guys about my experience trying to utilize medical marijuana in recovery. I could not do it. I was overtaking it. I was staying high. And to me, staying high all the time is not sober. So I had to take a look at that. And I couldn't do it, you know? So it's not like a negative thing, it's just how it affected me, you know? So, okay, it's 7:22. We got 8 more minutes till we start, y'all. So I don't want to start without everybody. But I like this chapter. This chapter is a chapter that I know, and I hate that. We agnostics, honestly, it's like, I just feel like it's a bunch of just like trying to explain to you why you need to believe in a power greater than yourself. And I'm just like, okay, I get it. You know what I mean? Not my favorite chapter, but this one is a really good chapter that I really enjoy learning. I was like, damn, y'all be tripping on my marijuana experience. Oh, I need to get us out of beauty and fashion, don't I? Beauty and fashion, hold on. Learn, we'll go to learn. This lip gloss is so plushy. Like when you put your lips together, it literally feels like pillows. I love it. Okay, I'm gonna start anyways, because I can't just sit here and do nothing. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Let's go. Chapter 5, how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. So let's talk about that sentence right there. So it says rarely, so not very often, have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Thoroughly followed our path. Not just halfway, thoroughly. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. And I want you guys to count how many times you hear the word honest in this like one page, okay? So it says, those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. there are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. So just in that first paragraph, the word honest was said 3 times. So how important do you think it is for your recovery for you to be honest? I would probably guess it's like really fucking important. So basically what it's telling us is that there are some people who just cannot get honest, and those people don't recover. Okay? Those people are people who are struggling, maybe somebody that has like mental illness and they can't, get better, and so they continue to relapse and relapse and relapse, or somebody who just can't see that honesty is important. Grave emotional and mental disorders, okay? But many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. So basically, we got to get honest, 110% honest, taking accountability, okay? So it says that they're not at fault. They were born that way, okay? They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty, okay? So let's go to the next chapter. So honesty is important. It's very, very, very important. If we cannot get honest, we cannot recover. Bottom line. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. Okay, so let's stop right there. So it says to us, okay, so you know how we have guest speakers on, you guys, and they talk to, and I always ask the guest speaker to share with us what it was like before, during, and after, and what their life is like now. This is what it's telling us. It's telling us that the stories that they have in this book share with us what their life was like before, during, and now that they're in recovery. Okay? If we have decided that we want what they have, which is sobriety, recovery, we have to be willing to do the work. Okay? So like, we're not going to just be able to blink our eyes and be like, okay, I stopped using drugs and alcohol. I'm going to get sober now and life is going to be grand. Like, it actually takes lots of work and dedication to changing your life and your behaviors. It's not just something that it doesn't come easy at all. Like, it takes work. Just like it took work to learn how to use drugs and find out where all the good connects were and spend all those hours every single night searching and finding and tracking down the dope man. That's what it's like in recovery. You have to search and you have to find and you have to track down and you have to work your recovery, okay? At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. Let me tell you guys about all the easier, softer ways that I tried. So before I got sober this last time, I had tried everything. I tried to substitute, like instead of getting drunk and high, I would only take pills, or I would not take Xanax bars anymore and just do Roxy's, or I totally squared out methamphetamine and I was like, fuck that, I'm only doing pills. Or I would stop using and say, I'm going to go to church, I'm going to pray, and that's how I'm going to get sober. And everything I tried never worked. But I tried every way there was except for the right way. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. So don't even waste your time, man. Fearless and thorough. Some of us tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we could let go absolutely. Let me tell y'all an old idea I tried to hold on to. One of the old ideas I tried to hold on to was the fact that I could still keep my friends around me that were drinking and getting high. Okay, I mean, I went down the drain trying to hold on to these mofos. And I would, every single time, I would try to hang on to my drinking and using friends, and every single time I would relapse. Every single time. Remember that we deal with alcohol and drugs, cunning, baffling, and powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May ye find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. So half-assing recovery will get you nowhere, okay? Half-assing it is going to get you a half-assed recovery. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. And that's the 12 steps, so I'll read them to you, okay? We admitted we were powerless over drugs and alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we have harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and addicts and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. So nobody does it perfect. There's no perfect way, okay? We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. Willing. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholics/addicts and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism/addiction. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. So basically, that your higher power could and would if you seek your higher power, okay? Being convinced we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that, and just what do we do? Okay, so remember what we talked about yesterday, you guys? It's a God of your understanding. So in step 3, that you're gonna turn your will and your life over to the God of your understanding, okay? Whatever that is. It could be nature. It could be the universe. It could be Jesus Christ. It could be Allah. It could be Buddha, okay? Whatever the God of your understanding is, you're going to be willing enough to turn your will and your life over to that power, okay? The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. Self-will, our own will. Any life that we are directing ourselves will not be a success, because what got us into our situation in the first place? Self-will, seeking drugs and alcohol, doing what we wanted to do to change the way we felt to feel good. That was our selfish self-will, okay? Okay. On that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show. Who wants to run the whole show is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Self-management, okay? Managing our own lives and trying to manage everything around us in our selfish, self-seeking, self-will way. What we are doing is we're trying to fix, manage, and control our way through our addiction. And the only place that ever gets us is even more fucked up. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased if everybody would just act right. If the drug dealer would get my order on time, if my friends would just get out of my way and stop trying to get me to get sober, if my boss would just accept the fact that I'm gonna be high as fuck when I get to my job, if my parents would just get their heads out of their asses and give me a break, I'm stoned, all these things, right? Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. What usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself more. He becomes, on the next occasion, still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. He becomes angry, ignorant, self-pitying. What is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker, even when trying to be kind? Yeah, because why am I going to do anything if it's not going to benefit me? When I'm in active addiction, if I'm trying to be kind to somebody else, oh sure girl, I'll give you a ride. Well, she's paying me $20. That $20 will get me a rock of cocaine. What is selfish? Only if it's going to help me out, honey. Okay. Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things he wants? And do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? Our actor is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays. He is like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the nation. The minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century. Politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia if the rest of the world would only behave. The outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him, and the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up. Whatever our protestations are, not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, or our self-pity. Now, selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find that at some time in the past we have made decisions based on self which later placed us in a position to be hurt. So, our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. Damn, really? No, I know this, but whenever I first read this with my sponsor and it was telling me that, me being an addict, I'm selfish and self-centered, and that I don't do things unless they benefit me. When you're first hearing all that and you realize, damn, that's the truth. It's kind of like a slap in the face to realize that. Because, when we're in active addiction, everything is everyone else's fault. I don't know about you guys, but I was always feeling sorry for myself. I saw a little girl, she made a video and I stitched it today, and she was blaming methadone for her life being horrible. And she was holding up the picture and she's saying, this ruined my life. This right here ruined my life. And as I was hearing her say that, all I heard in my mind was, I'm not taking responsibility. I'm not ready to take accountability. And it's just that's exactly what we do. We don't want to hear what anyone has to say, because it's actually, we're going to have to take responsibility for our own actions. You can't blame medications for your You can't blame anybody. You have to take accountability. So anyways, they arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we alcoholics and addicts must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it will kill us. God makes that possible, and there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help. This is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal and we are his agents. He is the Father and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arc through which we pass freedom. When we sincerely took such a position, and all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer, being all-powerful. He provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. So we were becoming less and less self-centered and more focused on what we could do to help others, okay? As we felt new power flow in, and as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn. Now, this is the third step prayer, so listen up. Now we're at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him, remember, this is a God of your own understanding. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thy will. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Here's a simpler part of the third step prayer. Take my will in my life, guide me in my recovery, and show me how to live.
I'm staring at you the whole time.
What? Okay. Go talk to your dad about it.
A drink.
Talk to your dad. He's right there. Talk to your dad. We thought well before taking the step, making sure we were ready, that we could at least abandon ourselves utterly to him. We found it very desirable to take the spiritual step with an understanding person, like a sponsor or a mentor or an accountability partner, okay? Such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it is better to meet God alone with one who might misunderstand. The wording was, of course, quite optional, so long as we expressed the idea, voicing it without reservation. This was only a beginning, though, if honestly and humbly made, an effect, sometimes a great one, was felt at once. Next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning. Bitches, this is where step 4 comes, okay? So now we are taking action, which many of us had never attempted. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Our drinking, our liquor, our drug, our cocaine, our methamphetamine was but a symptom. So we had to get down to the causes and conditions. So basically, your drug of choice, whatever it may be, was just the symptom of your disease, right? It was something that you were doing because of something else, all right? So we have to get down to the reason why we're using methamphetamine, the reason why we're drinking alcohol, the reason why we're shooting dope, right? And so when we do our step 4, we start learning about those things. So let's keep going. Therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and a fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsellable goods, to get rid of them promptly without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about the values. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup, which caused our failure. Being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us, we considered its common manifestations. Now listen, here we go. This is really important, a really important paragraph. I have it highlighted so I know it's important. Resentment is the #1 offender. It destroys more addicts and alcoholics than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We write them down, okay? We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. We asked ourselves why we were angry. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore. We were burned up. On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relations which had been interfered with? We were usually as definite as this example. So I'm going to give you guys an example, okay? And this is how you would do a step 4, okay? So for those of you guys that asked me about the 12 steps and what's a step 4, this is what it is, okay? So you're going to have 3 columns. In your first column, you're going to have at the top, it's going to say, I am resentful at, okay? And then you're going to put the person's name. So I'm going to give you guys an example, okay? My 4th step said, I am resentful at Shane. Shane, you guys know the story. I lived with Shane. Me and him were dating. I got brutally raped by his best friend while he wasn't home, okay? So I'm resentful at Shane, okay? Then in the next column, it says the cause. Why am I resentful at Shane? Well, I'm resentful at Shane because he left me at home without him. And I feel truly that he set it up with his friend to have me raped. So I'm resentful at Shane because while he was gone, I was raped by his best friend. And I feel like they were in cahoots, okay? And this affects what in my life, okay? So this affected many different areas of my life. It affected my sex relations, how I felt about myself with him in our personal relations. It affected my, self-esteem. It affected my personal relationships and my ambitions. It affected every part of my life, basically, because I was raped. I didn't trust men anymore. I didn't trust him. I felt like I was a piece of nasty garbage. Now let me give you another example, okay? Here's another example. I'm resentful at my mother-in-law, Barb. We'll put Barb. Why am I resentful at Barb? Because Barb has never accepted me as my husband's wife. Now, where did that affect my life? It affects me in my husband's relationship, which is my sexual relationship, my personal relationship, my self-esteem, okay? Because I feel less than. I don't have validation from her. Let's do another person's. I'm resentful at, let me think. I'm resentful at the lady who tried to message Dr. B over the weekend. Why am I resentful at that lady? Because she tried to message my boss about a miscommunication on TikTok. What part of my life did that affect? Okay, that affected my personal relationship. It could have affected my pocketbook because it was my job, my self-esteem. Okay, so you get the drift? Okay, good. We went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. So we have to be super thorough as we put down all these resentments on paper. Okay, everything you can think of from the time you were born till now. Okay, when we're finished, we consider it carefully. The first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. So we're not just going to point out the wrongs that others did to us. We're going to find our part in it. That's part of the healing, okay? So listen up. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. We stayed mad. Sometimes it was remorse, and then we were sore at ourselves. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. So, it is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile? But with the alcoholic whose hope is the maintenance and growth of spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. It will kill you. We found that it is fatal. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns and we will drink again or use again. Holding resentments in our heart closes us off from healing, and it closes us off from a connection with a power greater than ourselves. Whatever that power is to you, remember, it's a God of your own understanding. And with us, to drink or to use is to die. That like makes me have chills because it's true. I don't think you guys understand like how important it is to let those things out of you. Not let them eat you alive, because for the longest time, that's what I carried around. I would get high over these things, right? I got high over being raped. I got high over, my boyfriend beating me up every single day for 5 years. I got high over having an abortion. I got high behind all these things that I held inside of me and never told anybody. And so part of healing and getting better is getting these things out of you and telling somebody else and working through those things, And so when it says that you'll die, it's the truth, because you'll keep on using. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics and addicts, these things are poisonous. So basically, we have to be rid of we don't have the luxury to be angry all the time. We don't have the luxury to hate everyone. We don't have the luxury to be miserable, because when we're like that, it kills us. We will drink and we will use over that. We turned back to the list, for it held the key to the future. The list that we made with all our resentments on it, remember? We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle, okay? This is where I'm talking about finding our part, okay? We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had power to actually kill us. How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol. This was our course. So now it's going to tell us how we're going to master these fucking resentments. Okay, so listen up. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. This is where the saying, some are sicker than others comes in. This is where we look at the people who hurt us as people who are hurting. Listen up. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way they disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. We asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, "This is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God save me from being angry. Thy will be done." We avoid retaliation or argument. So right there, it just told us, you guys, and I'm going to tell you, when people on here, it's a simple resentment, but it's actually something that is really important to talk about. So here on social media, a lot of times people will say horrible, hateful things to me, right? Or they'll go out of their way to hurt me by calling my boss or messaging them on Instagram, right? And instead of me holding that hatred and that anger in my heart, I have to look at that person as sick. Because anyone who's going to try and harm me over a miscommunication on TikTok has to be sick, right? They're hurting on the inside. So I need to show them tolerance and pity and patience because they're obviously not doing well, right? People who are well don't go out of their way to harm others, okay? Okay. How can I be helpful to him? God save me from being angry, thy will be done. We avoid retaliation and argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. So we wouldn't argue with somebody who's dying of cancer, would we? What? Go talk to your dad about it. He's awake. Neil, get Nate a drink. Sorry, y'all. His dad is literally right there. We avoid retaliation. Okay, we wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. Referring to our list again, putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely looked for our own mistakes. Now we got to find our part, okay? Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, or afraid? Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, we tried to disregard the other person involved entirely. Where were we to blame? So where can we find our part in it, okay? We have to take our responsibility for our part, okay? The inventory was ours, not the other man's. Because the other man's not going to die from our resentment, okay? The other man's not going to get drunk or high over our resentment. You know how they tell you guys that so-and-so's renting space in your head for free? This is what this is meaning, okay? Or when you're thinking, oh, I wish this person would drink poison. You know, it's like you're drinking the poison hoping the other person will, and they're not. You're the one who's going to die from your resentment, not the other person. When we saw our faults, we listed them. We placed them before us in black and white. We admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to set these matters straight. Notice that the word fear is bracketed alongside the difficulties with Mrs. Brown. Okay, so in here, they have the word fear bracketed beside a lot of self-esteem and security. And so basically what they're saying is that everything comes back to fear. So listen to this. This short word somehow touches about every aspect of our lives, the word fear. It was an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. It sent into motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve. But did not we ourselves set the ball rolling? Sometimes we think fear ought to be classed with stealing. It seems to cause more trouble. We reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper even though we had no resentment in connection with them. We asked ourselves why we had them. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? Self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it was worse. Perhaps there is a better way. We think so. For we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. We are in the world to play the role He assigns, just to the extent that we do as we think He would have us and humbly rely on Him. Does He enable us to match calamity with serenity? Matching calamity with serenity. So we never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let Him demonstrate through us what He can do. We ask Him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us to be. At once, we commence to outgrow fear. So, okay, I think what we're going to do is, we'll read the whole thing, because now we're going on to sex inventory, okay? Are y'all ready? Okay, come on, let's go. Now about sex. Many of us needed an overhauling there. But above all, we tried to be sensible on this question. It's so easy to get way off track. Here we find human opinions running to extremes. Absurd extremes, perhaps. One set of voices cry that sex is a lust of the lower nature, a base necessity of procreation. Then we have the voices who cry for sex, sex, and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we do not have enough of it, or that it isn't the right kind. They see its significance everywhere. One school would allow man no flavor for his fare, and the other would have us all on a straight pepper diet. So one would have us like totally, missionary style, and the other would have us like all the kinky shit. We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not want to be the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them? We reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? Okay, so for me, I had to write down on my 4th step about my ex, Robert, okay? My ex, Robert, and I were together for like 5 years or something. Sorry, y'all, I'll take this bra off. We were together for like 5 years, and I was really, really unfaithful to him. Like, I was super selfish. I cheated on him. I lied. I manipulated everything. So he was on my 4th step for my sex conduct, okay? Okay, whom had we hurt? So Robert, that's who I hurt. Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Yes, because I was cheating on him. I was being a hoe. Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? I was at fault for lying to him and having sex with other people. What I should have done instead was been honest and broke up with him. You know what I mean? Instead of leading him along. We got this all down on paper and we looked at it. In this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound idea for our future sex life. We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? So each relationship that you've been through, ask yourself this question. Was this a selfish relationship or was it not? Was I doing this to only fuel myself and what I needed, or was this an equal relationship, okay? We ask God to mold our ideas and help us to live up to them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised or loathed. Okay? So it's totally healthy to have sex. okay? It's not something that's bad. I remember when I was a little girl, I thought sex was bad and I was going to go to hell for having it. You know, because I was raised up Pentecostal. My mom would always tell me sex before marriage, okay? Whatever our idea turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we do not bring about still more harm in doing so. So, for example, let's say I cheated on my husband 6 years ago when we were in active addiction. This didn't happen, but let's say it did, okay? Now that I'm sober, I'm not going to go to my husband and say, husband, I cheated on you 6 years ago. Do you want to know why I'm not going to do that? Because that's going to hurt him even more. So I know what I did was wrong. I talked with my sponsor, my mentor, my accountability partner about it, right? I put it down on my list and we get through that together, okay? Now, we're not trying to bring up old shit and hurt people that don't care about us, okay? So that's one thing that you guys have to realize. Like, not everything, you don't have to go and like make amends to your husband for the time you stepped out on your relationship that he has no idea about from 30 years ago, you know? So whatever our idea, okay, provided that we do not bring about still more harm in doing so. In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it. God alone can judge our sex situation. Counsel with persons is often desirable, but we let God be the final judge. We realize that some people are as fanatical about sex as others are loose. We avoid hysterical thinking or advice. Suppose we fall short of the chosen idea and stumble. Does this mean we are going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only a half truth. It depends on us and our own motives. If we are sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and we will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are facts out of our experience, okay? So if we are sorry and we stop practicing that hurtful behavior, we're going to be all right. If we are sorry but we still be cheating, then we're going to get fucked up and shit's going to go down. So you got to change the behavior. Okay, to sum it up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right idea, for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity and for the strength to do the right thing. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others. We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of ourselves. It quiets the imperious urge when to yield would mean heartache. If we have been thorough about our personal inventory, we have written down a lot. We have listed and analyzed our resentments. We have begun to comprehend their futility and their fatality. We have commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. We have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies, for we look on them as sick people. We have listed the people we have hurt by our conduct and are willing to straighten out the past if we can. In this book, you read again and again that faith did for us what we could not do for ourselves. We hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from. If you have already made a decision and an inventory of your grosser handicaps, you have made a good beginning. That being so, you have swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about yourself. The end. And then that's it. That's chapter 5. So, basically, I think a lot of you guys learned a lot from that, because here's the thing. I know a lot of you guys go through a lot here on social media with fucking haters and people being mean to you and people saying just fucking foul ass shit on the internet. And when you hear that chapter, okay, how it works, doesn't it help you to understand why people do the things they do? Because they're hurting, because they're sick. Wow, I know, right? I know. That's my favorite chapter of all the big book chapters, you guys. My favorite, okay? Another reason why it's my favorite is because it shows you exactly what you need to do if you have resentments in your heart. You write that shit down. You write down the reasons. You write down what it affected in your life. And you become willing to make changes in yourself, you know? And yeah, I'll post this on my YouTube. I always do. When I worked the steps with my sponsor, we went through it just like it says in that book, and she had me write columns. And when I tell y'all, I had so much written down, even for my sex acts, in my sexual inventory, because a lot of the things I did when I was in active addiction were selfish. You know, they were things I did just for my own selfish needs. But it was because I was sick in my addiction, you know. But I'm willing to let go of a lot of that stuff. And I prayed about it, and worked through it with my sponsor. And I've made amends. So after I did my 4th step, I think it was like my 8th and 9th step, where we wrote down the people that I owed amends to, okay? This is something that I always wanted to do right when I got sober, every single time. And I would always try to go around and say I was sorry to people and make my amends early. But it's really not something you need to do until you've worked through, you know, those steps. And so when I learned that, I learned that there was 3 different areas that I would put these people in. The people I was going to make amends to right away, the people I would make amends to later, and the people I felt like I would never make amends to. And slowly but surely, I made my way through all the people that I was going to make amends to, right? And then the people that were on my maybe list moved over to my now list, and I went and made amends to those people. And then my never list became my maybe list, and then my maybe list became my now list. And I had been able to get through all of them. Now, there's some people that I never saw, right? Like I would call them and they wouldn't answer the phone. So those people I did try, but I've just never gone in contact with them. But what my sponsor told me is that when the time is right, God will put them in my path. And ain't that the truth? Because y'all know the girl Tara who called CPS on me, she was on my resentments list. And I actually owed her an amends also. Even though she hurt me, I owed her an amends too. And I thought I would never talk to her again. And 3 years into my recovery, right? 3 years into my recovery, she showed up at my job. And I was like, oh my God, my sponsor was right, you know? Because I wasn't going to go out of my way to try and find her. But there she was right in front of me. And I never forget it because she saw me from across the room and she was crying. She was crying and she walked up to me, and before she could say anything, I said, I forgive you. And she just started bawling even harder. And that's what she needed to hear that from me, and I needed to say it. I needed to tell her I forgave her, because holding that resentment for her calling CPS on me in my heart was literally making me crazy. And like the book says, I would have drank and got high over that eventually. True. So, okay, you little chicken nuggets, I'm going to go lay down. I'm tired. But I'm going to upload this on YouTube, okay? It was, girl. I'm going to go upload this on YouTube. Tomorrow night, we're just going to be doing a regular live stream. But Tuesday, Recovery Meme Queen is going to come on and tell her story. Because I knew we were going to do our big book study tonight. And if any of you guys want to come tell your stories, please DM me and I'll get you on the schedule, okay? All right. Good night, you guys.